So let's talk about equipment first. So you need your 2 saucepans, one big, one small. You need a cheese grater, unless you've bought grated cheese. You need a wooden spoon, or any big spoon's fine, and a dessert spoon that you'd eat your pudding with, and a baking dish. And ingredients, so you need some butter or some spread. You need some plain flour. To be honest, self-raising won't make that much difference. You need some milk. It can be whatever milk you've got, it doesn't matter if it's semi-skimmed, skimmed, whatever. And then some cheese. Again, you can use whichever cheese you really like. The stronger cheese, more flavour there will be. You need some pasta. It will be about half of a kind of standard size bag you need, not a whole bag. And then some salt and pepper as well, just to kind of, that enhances the flavour when we do the seasoning. Now, I've used a couple of kind of optional ingredients here as well. So I've used some mozzarella just on the top, so I've just bought a block, I got reduced, but you could use a ball or anything like that. And some paprika, which goes in the sauce, but again, you don't have to use that, it's just kind of enhances the cheese flavour. Now, first thing we're going to do is we're going to use our biggest pan, pop some boiling water in it, pop it on the ring so it gets nice and keeps boiling, and put our pasta in. And then we're just going to leave it alone until it's all nice and cooked. So let's get on to the sauce. First thing we're going to do is we're going to add the butter into the pan to melt. So I'm just popping in about 3 dessert spoonfuls. They're quite big spoons, to be honest, because I'm a bit liberal with my butter use, but it's 3 spoonfuls and you're just going to let it melt down now. Take a little while, you can shake it, stir it, however you like to it, but I just tend to leave it and go and do something else while it melts. Once it's all melted, what you're going to be doing is adding in the flour. So I tend to add 3 to start with, mix it all in together, and then add the next 2 on top, one after the other. What you're aiming for is a nice smooth paste that kind of holds itself together, so it's not a liquid, it is a paste. And then we're just going to cook it for a minute or so. Now I'm going to add the milk, very little at a time. You want to just put a little bit in, mix it down so you get it into a good smooth paste again, else you're going to end up with a lumpy sauce. And another little bit, repeat the same thing, and you just keep doing this until you get it up to a consistency where you're adding the milk a lot at once isn't going to make it lumpy. And you can see I do this now. It's really important that as you're putting in the milk, and then when we continue to keep cooking it, you keep stirring all of the time. It's the kind of the best way to make sure you don't get lumpy sauce, because if it starts to catch on the bottom, it all clumps together, and then you can get the lumps out. If it does happen, don't panic. What you need to do is grab a whisk, if you've got one, and whisk it really vigorously. That should get most of them out, and you can always pour it through a sieve if necessary. As you're cooking your sauce, it will go from a very thin liquid that kind of just runs off the spoon, as I just did, and eventually it will become much thicker, and it will kind of stick and coat the spoon when you lift it, just like this. So when you kind of run your spoon through, it all stays over it, almost like how cream would stay over a spoon. That's how you know when it's cooked enough. What I'm hoping you haven't done is forgotten about that pasta. You might have had to take it off while the sauce was cooking. You can always tell if pasta's cooked just by chopping a bit in half and looking in the middle. So if you're more prepared than me, you would have already grated your cheese, but you can do it at whatever point. I've used about half a block of cheese and then shoved that in with the sauce we've made. A little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper, and I've added about half a teaspoon of paprika as well, but you really don't have to, it's completely up to you. I just like the kind of depth it gives to the flavour. It doesn't taste like paprika at all. You want to stir all of that together really, really well, because else you're going to end up with some more lumps in it, and then you can add it to your pasta. It's easier to do that in a pan before you put it into the baking dish, just because else it gets a little bit messy. Putting it into the dish, you want to be a bit careful, because if you get too much over the sides, that will catch in the oven and burn. But again, it's not that important. I have chosen to put some mozzarella on the top, and I always like to do that, just because it kind of gives you that stringy cheese effect. And with mozzarella, you might have a ball, you might have a block, just whatever, they're the same cheese. It works best if you tear it rather than slicing it. Just the best thing to do with mozzarella. You get nice thin pieces, and then you just want to spread those evenly over the top. I'm using mozzarella, and then I pop on some cheddar cheese as well I've grated as well, but you don't have to do that. You can just use the normal grated cheese. When it comes out the oven, you want to remember how hot it's going to be. You can have it as brown or as not brown as you like. It's completely up to you. It's all cooked, so nothing's going to hurt you. Dishing this up, it should serve about 4 people, but there's no judgment here. If you want to eat it all yourself, that's completely up to you. I don't think this lasted more than 1 meal in my house, and there's not 4 of us, so it's something that tastes very nice. But if you are, if you've got good self-control and you can cook on bulk and not eat it all later, I would say go for it. This freezes very, very well in a sealed container. What you do need to do is make sure you seal it though, else it will get a freezer burn. You can cook it back in the microwave from frozen if you want, if you've got a microwavable container, or if you put it in a metal container, you can cook it in the oven from frozen as well. You just want to make sure it's hot all the way through when you do it. That is just how you make macaroni cheese, and there's a recipe card just coming up in a second.